Live. My wife, I was just saying right before we started this thing, and we had the best conversation before we actually go on the air. Um, my wife sent a meme to me, and it's in our family group text because I think almost every family has this. Sometimes I like to drop my kids off in 1985 and see how long they make it. I said not long,
3 hours tops.
yeah, she says they'd have to talk to people, no computers, no Netflix, no texting. And I wrote, "Can I take this cordless phone in the car?" Yeah, I thought we were the kings because I could actually we I grew up. We had a swimming pool in our backyard, and my parents bought a cordless phone so we could bring it outside because we'd be outside, people calling, and of course, nobody can answer it. So yeah, take the take the cordless phone, put it on the table in the on the patio furniture out there, and we're the kings. I can talk outside on the phone.
Yep.
I even tried sitting in the pool with it, but my dad was losing his shit when he saw that. Yeah, you have to. There's no instant demand for music. You have to go listen to the radio
Yep.
and play cassettes. And
Yep.
hey, man, I had my kick-ass Alpine stereo though. That was the best. That people still talk about. My old friends talk about to this day riding in that car with my with my Alpine stereo. At two door speakers and two 6x9s behind the seat. I had a pickup truck. I had a equalizer, Alpine equalizer. I had a um I forgot what the hell the thing was called, a booster basically, but I don't remember what the hell it was actually called. And people come out my car going, "Oh my god, it's so loud in here." I was like, "I can hear you coming down the street." I'm
Yep.
like, "Yep, damn right." So, um, before we get to what we were talking about on the air, did you watch all the Super Bowl?
For the most part, I missed the last couple minutes of the third quarter and the first couple minutes of the fourth because we were eating and watching the game over at my parents' place, and the little man reached a point of I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home.
Yeah.
And we live like 10 minutes up the road, so it was not that big a deal. But yeah, other than that, I saw the whole game.
Uh, yeah, hell yeah, I was DJ. I don't know. I was DJing all through college. I really was. I I played some. I had the briefcase full of blues. They called it because I had all my cassettes in a briefcase looking thing. And yep, I had a lot of cassettes. We played at parties. In fact, I think I told the story before, but I could always tell because we would have two tape decks. And I have the headphones next to me, and I'm queuing up songs at a party while I'm drinking, and I get these blank spots in certain songs. I know that's because I was drinking and I'm not paying that close attention, and the record button is next to the stop button, and you hit the record button, like, damn it, you know. So yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I still have all my cassettes too. My wife just it kills her. She's like, "Why the hell do you still have these things? You've got all this music on your phone now." I'm like, "Yeah, but the nostalgia,
Yeah.
my mega mixtapes I would make,
Yep.
just hey,
Yeah, I have cassettes. I have a bunch of VCR tapes too.
yeah,
Uh,
I do too.
VHS tapes, excuse me. Yet I don't have a VCR and I don't have a cassette player.
I
Shut up,
I
Dad.
Hey, Chad, my dad went in the closet. He's throwing out all of our old stuff, and he goes in the closet and he pulls out a box about this. I gotta hold my hands up so you can see, about this long, full of 8-track tapes. And yeah, I haven't played an 8-track tape in oh, it's got to be 40 years at least. I mean, I played them in the early 80s,
Mhm.
left over from the 70s, and they were all K-Tel albums. That's the kind of stuff I would buy on 8 track, high energy, boogie nights, all kinds of crap like that. And you bought them for like maybe 3 or 4 songs,
Mhm.
but they always had crap in there. They would throw in, supposedly all the biggest hits. And it's like songs you going, who the hell is that? I never
Right.
heard this song. So, yeah, I had 8 track tapes. My dad has a reel to reel player. Um, and I have his old reel to reels. I'm probably never gonna give up those because those things were pretty cool. Um, but yeah, reel to reel and vinyl albums, which my daughter
Oh
has
yeah.
already taken. Yeah. Oh yeah, you gotta have mixtapes. People would ask me to make a mixtapes.
Mhm.
Um, and a good friend of mine, um, worked at a radio station, and I used to go over there while he was doing the midnight to 6 a.m. shift on Saturday nights and stuff. So if I wasn't going out that night, I go to the radio station. Man, that's a kid in a candy store.
You
I'm
hang
in.
out.
The,
Oh yeah.
I'm in the studio where they make commercials, and I'm taking these things with me, and I'm playing stuff. And he's like, hold on, okay, you can take that one, because he's got his charter, all the songs he's got to play,
Yeah.
because that's how they sell ad time and things like that. So, I was having a blast. I was there. I made several mixtapes with playing of that thing, and it was kick ass sound. So I got everything working. Um, yeah, and that was when I had that one had a mixing board, so it made it even cooler because like my Van Halen cassette mixtape. So I'm going on one song, I'm going on Running with the Devil, then you hear, something else. I don't remember what song I have next, but it's fading in and fading out, and I'm just like, that is the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. Slowing the track down and stuff like that. Frankenstein? Are you talking about the Edgar Winter Frankenstein? Dun 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 dun. I have that album, by the way. Edgar
I think
Winter.
we all did.
Yeah.
And anybody close to yours or my age.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, my grandma used to have an 8 track player. Oh God.
What up, Jerry?
Anyway, well, I'm gonna talk about the halftime show in a minute, but I didn't get to watch the whole game. I was doing work and stuff like that. I watched most of it. I watched the final drive.
Mhm.
What I think is hilarious is, and that was the point of this show, and the name of this show, Lay Your Hands on Me. Here you have Eli Apple, who just says, for no apparent reason, New Orleans is a dirty, trashy city, and he didn't like the fans and that kind of stuff. Well, on social media, they jump on him. Saints fans jump on him, and some Bengal fans actually had the gall to say, "He's pretty good for us. He wasn't good for you guys, but he's pretty good for us." And all the fans like, you'll
Mhm.
see. And look what happened. Did you find that hilarious? I found it hilarious. Even players were trashing him,
Yeah.
not just Saints players.
Yeah. That's. I think that's what I found the funniest. Is that NFL players came out of the woodwork, and Eli was not only trashing New York and New Orleans fan base and cities, but individual players, not just from the Saints and the Giants, calling out, Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, a couple Ravens receive, calling out a bunch of players specifically by name,
Mhm.
and then like a coward, hiding behind the keyboard and not responding to them. He would respond to fans, but of course he's not going to see fans on the football field next year or the year after either.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what I found most hilarious. Was not so much fan bases attacking him, but the players, because you don't see players attacking players often. Usually, it's good-natured jabs,
Mhm.
and occasionally you can see some underlying personal beef between two specific players, but I have never seen anything to the extent that we have seen, from NFL players, many NFL players directed at Eli Apple specifically over the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, Chad brings it up. He said he wanted to take on, OBJ one on one, and when Beckham scored that first touchdown, I'm like, was that Apple? Was that Apple? And he was in coverage, but it wasn't his guy. It was
Right.
Hilton, I think it was
Yeah.
22.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike Hilton.
yeah. Who got it? So, but I just found it hilarious. I'm like, okay, so OBJ goes down. Now you get Cooper Cup out there, and Cooper Cup just set him on fire.
Oh yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
all Eli Apple did was give Cooper Cup the MVP award. That's all.
yeah, exactly. It's just you. Yeah, he's been beating everybody all year,
Yeah.
and so Cooper Cup is just. You knew he was the best player, best receiver in the NFL. Some people felt like he didn't deserve to be the MVP. I could see it. He scored the game winning touchdown.
Hmm.
He was their number one receiver. Everyone
Hmm.
knew he was getting the ball, and he made plays. So
And
I
he,
can
he made plays when it mattered most too.
yes.
I didn't necessarily. I love Cooper Cup as a player. You and I both
Mhm.
do. Uh, I would have been okay with giving it to Cup, Donald, or even Matt Stafford, who
Mhm.
had he was on fire at the start of the game. And again, just like Cup, came up big on the two drives they needed him to. So I'd have been just fine with any of those three players getting it.
The thing about Donald was he made the announcement. And this is the other thing I want to talk about about the Super Bowl. He made the announcement to a reporter right before the game started. If I win the Super Bowl and get my ring, I'm going to retire. I probably will retire after that. And he reminded me of Reggie White and Jim Brown both in that regard.
Hmm.
Reggie White, all he ever wanted was to be called a champion. All the other stuff that he had done, that was I see I'm frozen. I don't know
Yeah.
why. But you know, that was all that mattered to him was becoming
Hmm.
a champion. Um and Jim Brown, when he stepped away, his thing was I won a championship in 64. I have been I haven't missed a game. I've been MVP. I've been to multiple Pro Bowls, multiple All Pros. I've done everything that I can do on the football field. There's nothing left I can do.
Yep.
So I can walk away. And part of it was his disagreement with management, but
No
part of
doubt.
it
Yeah.
was, yeah, part of it was he felt like he did everything he could in a football field and he walked away. So, I would not be surprised to see Donald take that same approach once he thinks about it. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
To me, I think he was just talking out of emotion. And the same thing. Sean McVay is sort of alluded to the same sort of things.
Hmm.
After since the game has been over. So I personally know I don't see I don't see McVay stepping down, and I don't see Donald stepping away, at least right away for either man. Having said that, if they do, I respect the decision. Uh, just like you pointed out, I think Jim Brown was a great example. Jim wanted to. If it was up to Jim Brown, he would have continued to play. He would have been the first part-time player of that era because he also wanted to shoot movies. Jim Brown thought he could act, uh, and he was in quite a few movies, but none of them were very good. Even Dirty Dozen, his part wasn't very good. Uh, so yeah, therefore, I respect any player, any coach that decides it's time and I want to get on with my life. But I say that with a caveat. As long as you don't leave your franchise, your teammates hanging, twisting in the wind, while
Hmm.
you make a decision. If you don't pull a Brett Favre on them, and you let them know, of your intentions or at least what you're thinking about doing, then by all means, you have a right to move on and go to the next chapter of your life.
Well, it looks like we haven't talked much about it, and I can do this now that Sean, unfortunately, is out tonight. He's doing a catering job, but we never really mentioned much about Tom Brady retiring. And then
Mhm.
there's some stories that Tom Brady hasn't completely closed the door. But to me, I think he has completely closed the door. They're not going to. He is not going to pull a Brett Favre and decide that he wants to come back. I think he kind of made his decision this past year. If he didn't, even if he went to the Super Bowl, he was going to finally walk away. I think he felt like he took more of a beating this past year
Oh, yeah.
than he has in previous years. And you get to the point in your life where um, you want to be able to enjoy the rest of your life. You don't want to
Mhm.
be like Jerome Bettis, who has to use a muscle stimulator to get up out of bed in the morning. That kind of thing. And I don't know if he still does that every night, but I know they were showing that after during the season, after games, that Monday and that Tuesday, you have to use a muscle stimulator so he could get out of bed because his
Mhm.
muscles would so lock up. And you just don't want to be that broken down player.
No, no, and again, these guys are human beings, and a lot of fans seem to forget about that. Uh, I talk with Jim Everett quite a bit, as you know. Jim has had three back surgeries, a handful of knee surgeries. His back is so bad he has to pick and choose his moments when he can fly anywhere because he has to be on certain medications and see certain doctors. And he's just in so much excruciating pain after he even takes a short flight that it basically lays him up for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And Jim, if you're watching, I hope you don't mind me throwing it out there. But yeah, that's just another example of what an NFL play, not just an NFL player, a professional athlete, that's done this since they were 8, 10 years old, to varying degrees of physical beating, of course. But you get to your 30s and your 40s, and you can't recover. It's physically impossible to recover anymore,
Hmm.
from any kind of injury. And that's just an average person like you or I. You look at a guy that's been doing this day in and day out for 20 and 30 something years, and I mean, my God, yeah, they become physically broken down in every sense of the word.
Yeah. They were talking. One of the things they were talking about was, oh well, I see Chad. Your text message just came up. Whitworth probably going to hang him up too. And that's very impressive that he was able to play the offensive line as long as he has. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that people just don't think about is you're shortening your, I guess, your productive years in life when you're a professional athlete because you have to hone your body to such an extent that the only things that can give way are the joints.
Hmm.
And your joints are what's the key to your mobility. Your knees, your ankles, your hips, your all these things, your back, all that stuff is what you can feel physically strong enough and things like that. But if you can't stand because there's so much pain in your knees, um, that's that's the part that people just don't think about. When a professional athlete does hang them up, and during the season and stuff, you can kind of mask that. But now as you get older, those games, those collisions that you've been taking, those hits you've been taking, now it's becoming harder and harder to bounce back from it. And I think
Yeah.
that's what happens to guys. So, oh God, always I got to stop moving so much when I do these things. My is this keeps picking the worst things that I'm frozen on. Uh, but anyway, I just want to get your thoughts on that because yeah, so many of these guys are talking about retiring, and so many of these we've heard rumors about coaches stepping down. Sean Payton, of course, has stepped down. Um, There's rumors that Bruce Arians might step down. There's rumors that Andy Reid might step down. Sean McVay, you already talked about. Just so much change. And I'm not sure why these coaches are saying these things now. Do you have any idea why some of these coaches are stepping away or talking about stepping away?
Honestly, yeah, I'll start with TV and the media. Uh, the media hops all over these coaches, especially the higher profile ones. They want to get them in the studio or they want to get them in the booth. And there's so much money out there for TV personalities now in sports, especially in the NFL. That a lot of these coaches, as highly paid as they are, they can make nearly as much or more as analysts or members of the media than they can on the sidelines. And that's, I think, the number one factor. And we just talked about the beating that a physical beating that a player takes, the mental and emotional drain that a coach takes, and players do too. I'm not discounting that. Players during the year at least get 1 day off a week to rest themselves physically. Now, a lot of the on an average work week for an NFL team, that off day is Tuesday. Now, a lot of players, they will, especially veterans, they'll still come in, watch film, get treatment, stuff like that. But that's pretty much optional. For a coach, a lot of times the longest day of their work week is Tuesday, that player's off day. And then obviously they're there every other day of the week that the players are. And usually when the players call it a day and go home to their families, the coaches are burning the midnight oil or coming in at 5 or 6 a.m. So the mental and emotional grind, and it takes a physical toll too. Don't make no mistake about that. And a lot of these coaches will refer to they'll use the same verbiage a player will when they retire as I'd like to spend more time with my family. A lot of critics of that, especially when a coach says it, and then goes into the booth or the studio, they'll say, well, those guys are on the road all the time too. It's different. You're only on the road for maybe 3 to 4 days a week, as opposed to you are gone for 18 to 20 hours a day, every day for nearly the entire year when you're a coach. So I think it's the mental and emotional drain. We've seen some high-profile coaches, die in the last year. Dan Reeves, John Madden are two that right at the top of my list mentally. That and John Madden's death shook up a lot of coaches, I think. Because Madden was a guy who retired from coaching at an early age, but he was kind of the poster child for I'm burnt out. I can't take this anymore. And kind of stepping back from the game of football from the competitive standpoint. And I gotta believe. I know that if I was a young coach, a young NFL coach, a guy like John Madden or Dan Reeves, guys that that did work those 20 to 22 hours a day, them dying, I'm positive that it would shake me up too.
Well, and the first coach who talked about burnout like that as a coach was Dick Vermeil back in what was it, 82, I think it was, where he stepped
Yes.
away from the Eagles. And a lot of people were kind of, I don't want to say making fun of it because that's not accurate, but looked at it like, what are you talking about burnout? What does that even mean, burnout? And Bill Walsh in 1987 said basically the same thing, that he was emotionally burnt out by the end of his time. When what year was it? They won the Super Bowl, not the three-peat one, not the George Seifert, the one when Montana got hurt. I think it was after.
It was 88 season when they beat the
When they
Bengals.
beat the
Super Bowl
Bengals, yes, when they beat the Bengals, he said when Dick Vermeil, not Dick Vermeil, when Brent Musburger brought up, is this the last game of Bill Walsh's career, he started to weep a little bit. And he said, at that point, because of the season and the drive and all the success we had, I was mentally and physically exhausted.
Mhm.
And what have we seen since then? We have seen football become a 24/7, 365 day a year job.
Yep.
Bill Walsh had probably a 9-month job,
Hmm.
and Dick Vermeil was probably a 6-month job. So we've only seen this increase each year for these coaches. And I think, for a guy like Sean Payton, he's got a new wife, a younger wife. I'm not putting it all on the wife, but
Right.
the energy that it takes to do this job every day and deal with this pressure, I think that just wears on him. And that's why he's saying he's looking at Drew, and I know he's been talking to Drew the whole time about this.
Oh yeah.
And Drew says, "Listen, me in this booth on Sunday night, I'm looking at game film. I'm breaking down offenses and defenses because I'm going to do color commentating. Um, I'm doing all the things that I would do for a game, but I don't have the pressure of having to win,
Yep.
and I don't have the beating
Yep.
that I would get playing on the field. But I'm getting and the crew is sort of like a locker room.
Hmm.
We develop friendships and stuff. So you get all that benefit, and you get to talk about football
Hmm.
and live football. And I think that's what is appealing to Sean right now. He can maybe get his football fix without the emotional toll that being a coach takes on him. That's why all these people saying that Sean's going to go to Dallas and Sean's going to take another coaching job. I don't know that. I don't think
No.
he knows that yet.
No.
We have to see if television feeds that fire that he has left with football. Because like in 2012, he fully had the I need to be on the field coaching
Yeah.
fire. But at this point now in his life, he's more like, if I can get that same satisfaction without having to go through the emotional stuff,
Hmm.
I may just do this for the rest of my life and be like John Madden, you know. So, there's an NFL Films thing on Vince Lombardi, and it talks about his final years in Green Bay and stuff like that. And they did all kinds of things about Lombardi because they loved Lombardi.
Oh
But
yeah.
they said, after yeah, and I can see why. I mean, the man is fascinating. But they they go to Vince Lombardi's house, and this is of course back in the '60s. For after the game's over with, and it's a win. They have a cocktail party in their basement, their den, their dining room. Oh no, did I lose everybody?
I still hear you.
Okay, I'm still here. All right, my computer's really freaking out right now, and I don't know why. Just the whole screen dropped out on me.
Hmm.
But anyway, I still see my camera on, so that's good. But
Yeah. Yeah. Your audio's okay too.
yeah, I can hear you fine as well. It's just the video feed for whatever reason. It's not my internet connection because I just checked that, and it's very strong. It's
Good.
just something's going on with StreamYard, but my computer's really acting funny. I probably need to run updates again. But anyway, they said after they had the cocktail party, they get their friends, and Lombardi's laughing and having a good time because they won. But he said you could see the transition during the party, the little cocktail party, where he starts getting grim. He starts withdrawing from the party. He's there, but mentally he's not there anymore.
Hmm.
And it's because he's thinking about next week, the next
Yep.
game. And I think that's where Sean is right now, where he's thinking it's always going to be about the next win. I'm not enjoying these wins anymore, and these losses are sticking with me even
Yep.
more of what we're doing wrong and how can I fix this? How can I, what can we do to address that? Why aren't these players responding like they should? All those things, is it my fault? Everything else. So I think that's why he and so many of these coaches are now thinking about this, that
Yep.
it's maybe a young man's game.
It
And
absolutely is a young man's game. And I said it. If I could be a tiny bit self-serving for a minute, I said it, with you guys, and I also when I was on with Jordy, shortly after Sean, stepped down. The reason I think I know what he's going through, because I certainly didn't coach football, and I never coached at the level that Sean Payton or these guys coached at. But I had a very successful high school coaching career. I mean, the Hall of Fame certificate in back of me will show that I must have been pretty good. Uh, but it reached a point where uh, I look back on it now and I think I don't believe that I legitimately laughed or smiled for 2 or 3 years there at the end. And I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy it, because I did, but I certainly didn't enjoy it at the time. Uh, the wins didn't mean nearly as much. I didn't get nearly the enjoyment. I love the wins, but I didn't get nearly the enjoyment out of them. The losses literally killed me a little bit more each time inside. Everything was always my fault. How can I fix
Mhm.
it? How can I make it better? How did I cost my team this time?
Yeah.
Uh, the off seasons, there were no off seasons. I had year round conditioning and training, and I was also traveling and playing as a pro am volleyball player at the time too. So you want to talk about burning the candle at both ends and having a nice bonfire in the middle. Uh, and when the last couple years, I once the thought entered my mind at the end of the year, maybe I'm going to take some time and at least kick around the idea of stepping down. Once that thought entered my mind, it's a spiral train, and
Mhm.
it's one that you cannot get off until you're off of it. And you hear guys talking about, once quitting or retiring enters your mind, you're already halfway out the door. There's some truth to that. It's
Mhm.
not that it's not that you don't put out the same kind of effort or anything like that, but it's almost like you see the light at the end of a new tunnel, and now you are just trying to reach it. The challenge is, and you mentioned it with Sean Payton, and I struggled with it too. The challenge is, once you step away, you get your mind and your emotions clear from all the politics and all the pressure and everything like that. But there's nothing to feed that competitive fire. And that's why I came back into coaching a few times, more than a couple actually, because I never got that competitive fire met. But when that day finally came, at least for me, when I said, okay, enough is enough, I am moving on to something else in my life. You do find different ways to get that competitive fix in. With a guy like Sean Payton, it might be on the golf course or something like that. It might not necessarily be on the sidelines, because that's the thing. And you alluded to this too. Sean's as competitive as they come. And if he
Absolutely.
comes back to the sidelines, it's because he didn't find a way to channel that competitive energy. Because
Yep.
that's the only thing that that leaving leaving coaching and going to the booth, for example, that's the only thing that is not going to fill. It's how am I going to win? How am I going to be the best? And Mark, I mean, you could be the best commentator and etc. But and how am I going to get that competitive fire going? And if he finds a
Absolutely.
way to channel that, then we won't see Sean Payton back on the sideline.
Right. Absolutely. It's funny as you mentioned you were pro am volleyball. We talked earlier about not recovering.
Mhm.
That's when I realized I was old. Was when I tried to play beach volleyball again, and this was years and years ago. But I used to play beach volleyball when I was in college, and then in my late 20s, early 30s, I went on a beach volleyball court to try and play and do the things I did. What felt like 5 years, but probably 7 or 8 years earlier. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell is wrong with me? My back is locking up. My knees are killing me. It's just,
Oh,
yeah.
Alan, I've had 3 shoulder surgeries, 4 knee surgeries. You've shaken my hand, and you felt it. Felt the my hand come out of its joint because my wrist
Mhm.
is so messed up.
Yeah.
Uh, and volleyball is a far cry from the world of professional football or professional hockey, or anything like that. So I can't even imagine. I know how I feel at 49 years old. I can only imagine how these guys, these higher level professional athletes go through.
Yeah. And I didn't even do it professionally or anything like that. It was just playing. And, when you're in your early 20s and your teens, you can go do anything, go hop on a
Oh yeah.
bike, and you're doing all kinds of stuff, and your body's fine. And then
Mhm.
you kind of get used to that sedentary lifestyle.
Yep.
And I say that because I sit in front of sit behind a desk most days. I walk around, but I don't run, and I'm certainly not doing a lot of physical activity. So yeah, I mean, your body gets used to that, and you're not using muscles you used to use. Um, so yeah, it's just mind blowing. It really is. It hits you fast. I really wanted to save this for. There's two more things I want to talk about tonight, but I really wanted to save it for Sean. But I think we could talk about this now.
Okay.
I asked the question at the end of the last week's show, who your team MVP and rookie of the year candidates were. Um, but I'm gonna take the team MVP and split it between offense and defense, and because I want to know, would we even have an offensive MVP this year? Um, but who would be your defensive MVP?
That's a tough one.
Yeah,
I would give it begrudgingly to Demario Davis. Uh, and I say
yeah,
begrudgingly. To me, he just edges out Cam Jordan. Cam had another terrific season. And I know Cam had his critics, unfair critics, early in the year because he didn't have the sack numbers.
hmm,
But he led the team in pressures. He still played spectacular run defense. He just wasn't getting the quarterback on the ground. Uh, so I think Cam had a much more consistent season than people give him credit for. But to me, Demario Davis is the key. He's the key that turns the engine to one of the best defenses in the National Football League. Uh, Demario is not hardly ever going to be at the top of the league statistics and sacks, tackles for loss, quarterback pressures, intercept, none of that stuff. But he's going to be in the upper half, upper third of every single category. The linebacker can be in. His ability to diagnose an opposing offense, to break it down, not only get himself in position to make plays, and or have the athleticism to chase down plays sideline to sideline, but he's the quarterback of that defense. He can move his defenders around and put them in the right position too, which is just as big a key to being a linebacker as having the physical abilities. So to me, Demario Davis is the team MVP, certainly the defensive MVP. I would give him the team most valuable player for 2021.
yeah. I totally agree with everything you said about Demario Davis. But and he probably would be my MVP as well. But I've got to say some things about Quan Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you think about, this was a guy who tore his Achilles tendon. I think it was around week 10, week 11 of the 2020 season.
Yeah,
You
Christmas Day.
know, it was Christmas. Okay, so it was even later than that. It was Christmas. Tears his Achilles tendon, comes back early from this. I mean, you think about Sheldon Rankin. Sheldon Rankin's tore his Achilles tendon um, in the playoff game against the Eagles,
Yeah.
and he didn't really come back just to play until what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks into the season.
It
And
was something
it's
like that. Yeah.
yeah, and it still took him a couple of weeks to get up to speed and become the player we're used to seeing. Demario Davis, not Demario, Kwan Alexander hit the ground running. He
Yeah.
was showing us stuff in the summertime that he was able to do. And he comes on this field and they want to try and kind of bring him in slowly. And eventually they're like, why are we wasting our time trying to bring this guy in? He's good to go.
Right.
No ill effects at all. And I think he's actually he played this past year, probably his best that he's played since his early days with Tampa when he got the big contract from the 49ers because of what he showed. So, yeah, Quan Alexander was just amazing. He was great in coverage. Which was supposedly his weakness, and he was outstanding run defense. He learned or seems to have learned a lot from Demario Davis as far as play diagnosing and being in the right place at the right time. It just, I was just amazed by how good he was. He kept Pete Warner off the field. He really
Right.
did. And Pete Warner was brought in basically because they didn't think they were going to have a Quan Alexander. So for the first time since probably the 2000 season, I felt that the Saints linebackers were the strength of the defense. And a lot of it has to do with the player you talked about, Demario Davis and Quan Alexander. Those two there made that the strength of the defense. So I totally agree with you on Demario Davis. I just had to say that about Quan because he just totally amazed me.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And if we were giving out most inspirational or most surprising player of 2021, Quan Alexander is my pick for that, hands down, because of everything that you just mentioned. As a matter of fact, I'd even go out on a limb, and I'd say this out loud, to Lauren when we would, be watching the games late in the year. I thought Quan was playing better football than Demario, and that's no knock on Davis. He was still playing at a high level. I thought Warner had a very, very good rookie season. Those three, along with Caden Ellis, who played great run defense, liability and pass cover, but great run defense. Those three guys plus Caden Ellis, the Saints had their best linebacking core at least since that 2000 year that you mentioned, and quite possibly since the heyday of the Dome Patrol. I thought Quan played the best football of his career.
And then I know Calvin, if he's on, he would bring up Marcus Davenport. I thought you saw a dramatic difference in this defense when Marcus Davenport was on the field versus when he was not on the field. He just needs to take that next step and stay healthy because that's the only thing that's holding this guy back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you were to project out, we talked about, Cam's slow start statistically. If Marcus Davenport was able to stay healthy for even 14 or 15 games, I think he would have been both of our choices for MVP. Because Davenport in 11 games he had 9 sacks and 20 pressures. 3 forced fumbles, 9 tackles for loss. All of those were career highs, and he did it in 11 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I there's just too much going on with this defense that just totally impresses me how good they really are. I'm in the live chat now, so it's I can see what some of you guys are saying, even though I can't make it pop up on the screen because I'm still frozen. But so my next question, I guess, would be who would be your rookie of the year on this defense or this team?
Paulson Adebo.
Yeah, I kind of tipped it with that statement, but yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, Paulson Adebo. I thought Warner had a very, very good rookie campaign. But yeah, Adebo and what he meant to not only that secondary, but the defense. You talked about Quan's play keeping Warner off the field in a lot of games. Adebo's play kept Bradley Roby off the field in almost every game.
Hmm.
And they traded a third, I think it was a third round pick specifically to get Roby to shore up that secondary. And although Bradley certainly made it a deeper cornerback crew, Adebo's play, and anybody playing opposite Marshawn Lattimore is going to get targeted a lot, and especially a rookie. And even the veteran guys, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, they all had to be salivating coming into games against the New Orleans Saints because, oh my God, there's going to be a rookie playing a cornerback. And it's not even a rookie first round pick, mind you. And he stood up to every single challenge. That first game
Absolutely.
against Atlanta was one of his rougher outings of the year. But Adebo to me looks like a future Pro Bowl fixture. Still got a lot to learn, but I love his ball skills, his aggressive mentality. And Dennis Allen has the utmost confidence in him because Dennis did not. Dennis likes to play physical man-to-man coverage with his boundary corners, and he plugged Adebo in from day one and didn't blink an eye. And that kid stood up to every challenge.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more on Adebo because I felt Adebo, he showed what all good cornerbacks are supposed to have. He had total amnesia about bad plays. He could have bad games. I can remember early in the season, fans were like, "We need to bench Adebo and play Bradley Roby," and he confirmed the confidence his coaching staff had in him because, yeah, he made some bad plays, but he came back and made more good ones than bad ones.
Yep.
And he bounced back and learned from his mistakes that he was making. I credit Chris Richard,
Yeah.
the defensive secondary coach, for helping him, but he took a step that a lot of people didn't expect him to do his rookie year, and I think yes, he is solidifying that position. I remember, even Nick Underhill upset that Jack Rabbit, Janoris Jenkins was gone, and he
I
felt
was
like we
too.
had a
Yeah.
we have a huge hole, a liability at cornerback, especially because weren't able to draft a J.C. Horn or a Gavin Newsom or pick your Asante Samuel. No, Asante Samuel went in this draft. But
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he
he
was.
was. He was okay, but we weren't able to draft, a top corner in the first round. But we still got a great one in a Devo. So I was really, really happy. Yeah, Sean just commented. He's sorry he had to work tonight. Yeah, um, that's okay. I'm frozen and I have a black screen, so I can't even see anybody's comments right now. It's definitely my computer. It's not my internet connection. It's something going on with my computer. So it is what it is. The joy of being live. Um, would you say we had an offensive MVP this year?
No. No, absolutely. If you're going to give it to somebody, I would begrudgingly give it to Kamara because that poor man literally had to carry the offense by himself without an offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, AK-41 had to carry the offense last year too because of a declining Breeze and a beat up Michael Thomas, but at least he had a healthy offensive line. Uh, but you look at the numbers, and Kamara average. He had by far his worst receiving year
Hmm.
as a professional. By far his worst average yards per carry as a professional. But again, the numbers, the defensive respect he got. I think if you had to give an offensive MVP, you probably give it to Kamara. If not, then you maybe look at the offensive line. Eric McCoy, once he came back from that early season injury, he was probably the team's most consistent lineman. But even he did his play was pretty inconsistent down the stretch. So yeah, if you're putting a gun to my head and say, Bob, you have to pick an offensive MVP, you got to give it to Kamara.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to give out an MVP to anybody in the offense because Kamara missed 4 games with an injury. But
Mm-hmm.
Deontay Harris maybe, but
Yeah.
even Deontay Harris, he missed 3 games because of his suspension. You know, it's so hard. Well, and the reason why I split it this way is Dennis Allen has now been at this job for a week,
Mhm.
and we have learned, although nothing has been said officially, but we are finding out that already the offensive line coach is gone, the strength and conditioning coach is gone.
Mhm.
Um, we probably are letting pretty much it's out there that Curtis Johnson, CJ, is going to be gone, the receivers coach.
Yep.
Um, it's you're seeing a lot of turnover, and of course, Pete Carmichael's been demoted.
Mhm.
Some of this is by choice. Carmichael allegedly has stated that he wants to take a demotion, not be offensive coordinator. So we have no offensive coordinator. Dennis Allen has said, even though we don't have a defensive coordinator right now, that he still wants to call the defense.
Mhm.
Um, what does this say about the offense then? That Dennis Allen seems to be blowing up Sean Payton's offense and wants to put his own offense in. How do you read this?
Uh, I wouldn't go as far as to that extent, as far as the verbiage. I do believe that this is where Dennis Allen is putting his stamp on his New Orleans Saints, and it's very important to ownership, right down to Dennis Allen, that they keep much of the same culture that Sean Payton has installed over the last 16 years. But
Mm-hmm.
just as you and I were cautioning since the minute Sean Payton said, "I'm not going to coach the New Orleans Saints anymore," we were saying, yeah, look, even if they promoted Dennis Allen or somebody like that, that doesn't mean that things are going to stay the same. Allen's nobody's puppet. Mainly because the Benson family doesn't want a puppet. This isn't Jerry Jones or Daniel Snyder or even Pat Bowlen. They don't want puppets. They want somebody to run their franchise, and they like the way Sean Payton ran it. So the whole idea behind retaining and promoting Dennis Allen was to keep him headed in that direction. But you can still get to the end game by taking a couple of side roads, and that's where obviously there was a whole lot of things wrong with this offense, not only in 2021, but if you're an honest observer, you saw the warning signs really since the tail end of 2018, uh, and because of that, that's why, again, why I believe Dennis Allen, this is where he's creating his own fingerprints, his own identity, within this coaching staff. We talked about some of the potential candidates that could be brought in, not only as offensive coordinator, but just experienced offensive assistants. And we've already started to see that, just in bringing back, John Morton, and Doug Marone was
Mm-hmm.
the one that stood out to me. And obviously Marone's not going to be the offensive coordinator, but he's an experienced NFL offensive mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ultimately we're going to see an offensive coordinator come to the Saints that at least has a lot of years of NFL coaching experience, even if it's as a position coach.
Do you well then my next question is, you know, Dennis Allen has said that he wants a tough physical team. He said that in his opening press conference, which almost all coaches just say this because no coach comes on and says, you know what, I really want a passive, finesse football team because we're going to play passive finesse football because that's what the fans really want to see. No one says that. They always say they want tough physical. It's just like new and improved. I always joke, because the other one was old and crappy, but old and inferior. But, do you see them going for a smash mouth offense now? A la Jim Moore, Bum Phillips, what Mike Ditka allegedly said he wanted. Um, that kind of a Tennessee Titans kind of team, or do you see them, you know, still trying to maintain this pass run option of Peyton, but um, want to lean more into, I don't know, more of a vertical attack. I mean, how do you see this playing out?
I can't see it being a complete throwback offense, a Bum Phillips or a Jim Morris style,
Mhm.
because it's not the way Alvin Kamara is built either. And you want to talk about running a guy into the ground
Yeah.
and using a player in the wrong way. That would be the way to do it. Uh, but I do believe that we're going to see more of a ball control style of attack. We're going to see more of a 2019 New Orleans Saints rather than a 2011 Saints, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
Uh, and again, it's going to be a guy that uses running backs, multiple running backs, in different ways. A lot, you want to use your best players to their best physical attributes. And we know a guy like Kamara, for example, he's a hell of a running back, and he's a good running back between the tackles. But what he's great at is getting him into open space.
Yeah.
That's where this offense has failed for really the last season and a half.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's gonna be a guy like that uses Kamara to his physical skill set, using Michael Thomas, to his best physical attributes, and looking for a quarterback that's going to take advantage of play action opportunities and able to hit downfield throws. Not necessarily the old Al Davis bombs away Raiders attack that you've joked about. But a guy that's going to be able to hit that over the top play. When the dominant in the trenches style starts to lure those defensive backs up.
It's funny that you mentioned the Raiders because I think he wants to build kind of an old school Raiders kind of team
Yeah.
because, one of the things that it's kind of misleading about what Madden's Raiders were like. Madden's Raiders ran the football a lot. They
Oh
really
yeah.
did. Because you had Art Shell and Gene Upshaw, and they used to joke, "Oh, they always run to the left. They always run to the left." He's like, "Well, I guess I will. I'm running behind the best guard and tackle in football. I'm
Mhm.
absolutely going to run to the left. You can't stop it."
Yep.
So, and he used a variety of backs. He had Charlie Smith, he had Mark Van Egan, he had old Mother Hubbard, Marv Hubbard. He had a variety of backs he liked to use.
Yeah, Kenny
So
Stabler would only throw like 18 or 20 passes a game.
that's right. And Brolitnikov was his possession guy,
Mhm.
and Branch was his speed guy.
Yep.
And they had some insane stat that Branch had over 1,000 yards receiving on like 46 passes. He was averaging over 24 yards a catch. Um, and these weren't. And Kenny Stabler didn't have a big gun for an arm.
Mhm.
So these are a lot of run after the catch yards. But I think that's kind of where Dennis Allen's head is right now, that he wants to have a variety of different backs that can do different things. And one of the people that I think he interviewed for an offensive coordinator job was Detroit Lions guy, might have been the Cowboys receiver, somebody who really understood the RPO and was
The two interviews they've had so far for offensive coordinator that I know of outside the building were Robert Prince, the
mhm,
newly hired Cowboys receiver coach,
yes,
and Scotty Montgomery, the Colts running back coach. I love
that's who
Montgomery.
that's who it is. Scotty Montgomery. That's who it
Yeah,
was.
and I think they like him too. It goes without saying what Jonathan Taylor did for the Colts, running back Jonathan Taylor did for the Colts this season. But if you're curious about what type of attack Scotty Montgomery likes to run, Frank Reich is the head coach in Indianapolis, so he has a big hand in what the offense does. Click on the University of Maryland in 2019, or click on East Carolina. The Pirates were a bad football team, but had a very diverse offense from I think 2017 and 2018. Scotty Montgomery was their head coach. So if you're curious what kind of attack Scotty Montgomery runs, click on film from East Carolina or the University of Maryland. In addition to watching how he used Jonathan Taylor this last year.
Yeah. So I would not be surprised to see the Saints bring in a variety of backs, both in the draft and in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Leonard Fournette obviously is the big name because he's an LSU player. He's played with Tampa. We've got to watch him a lot. He seems to fit that big back mold that the
Yeah.
Saints like, that would seem to work for this kind of team. But to me, you have to keep an eye on this offensive line. How does he address this offensive line? Getting Doug Marrone in there, I think Marrone's job is to fix Ruiz. I think I know. I think they felt like this is a guy we invested a first round pick on. He looked a lot better at Michigan than he has for the Saints. We need to see if we can fix this guy. And I think that's why the offensive line coach got fired. And I think Curtis Johnson got let go because they felt like the receivers, Sean Payton, people joke on Saints Twitter all the time that Sean Payton kept saying, I like this room. I like this room. I think they were very disappointed with the lack of development.
Yeah.
You saw something come of Callaway. I think they're very frustrated with Traquan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And Deontay Harris has shown us glimpses, but I think they wanted more out of him. And granted, we're talking about all undrafted free agents except for Traquan Smith. But I think that's what they're kind of frustrated with, because they're like, look what you did with Lance Moore. Look what you did with, Devery Henderson, where Henderson came from a guy who was a 50-50 guy catching the ball to a consistent receiver. My God, look at Marcus Colston. And now that you've got Michael Thomas, it seems like you're not developing any guy. You're not getting that great receiver, undrafted receiver that you were able to convert in previous years. So I think that's why Johnny Morton is coming back.
Absolutely.
To make, I think Traquan Smith's a lost cause. I think that's one of the guys that is going to get jettisoned. But they want to see more development out of Callaway because they see the glimpses, the potential that he could be a slot guy, the fourth receiver, not a 1, not a 2, but a guy you can play 1 or 2 if you're moving Thomas to the slot on certain downs and positions and so forth. But you need to see more development out of this guy. He's showing too much talent out there for him not to be more productive. So, that's the stuff I think is driving these coaching decisions. And I think that's why he wants to get his own kind of offensive coordinator in there. Do you think, because this is the last question I'll ask for the night, but do you think that Jameis Winston fits in those plans, or do you think they look at other options?
Both. And I know that's a cop-out answer.
No, but I agree with you. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I think that if you want to run that kind of offense, then I think you have to really like what you saw from Jameis Winston out of what he played. I know he got injured in the 7th game. So out of the 6 full games of body of work that we saw from Jameis, I'd say 4 of them have made him look like that type of quarterback. Because in the type of offense that we theorize that Dennis Allen might like to run, you obviously have to take care of the football and make smart decisions with the football. Jameis showed as much intelligence behind center as what I've ever seen him exhibit this past year. And we already know he can go downfield with the football. But he showed a lot of toughness. It showed a lot of game management type attributes. And again, and you and I have both said it. When he went down with an injury, I think he was really starting to hit his stride with what Sean Payton wanted him to do. And I think he would have been in store for a really, really good second half of the year. Not great, because again, there were no weapons to throw to. But my point is, if Dennis Allen does want to run that sort of hybrid ball controlled attack that we're talking about, Jameis Winston showed that he could be the guy to do it. But having said that, Jameis isn't going to come cheap, and I know we're going to break down free agency possibilities over the next 2 or 3 weeks after this. He's not going to come for pennies on the dollar, like you got him for the previous 2 years, the Saints. Therefore, you have to knock on Seattle's door. Hey, is Russell Wilson available? You have to knock on San Francisco's door because Garoppolo did run that kind of attack with the 49ers. You have to investigate that. If you can't make a feasible financial, productive decision for your offensive quarterback early in free agency, then you're talking about drafting a first-round quarterback, which I still think is an unlikely possibility, but certainly a feasible one at this stage of the game. And Alan, I don't know if we finally did lose you, or you're trying to get back in. Obviously, folks, like we said, we're going to be breaking down all kinds of free agency, possibilities, theories, projections, predictions, over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because Saints football doesn't end just because the Super Bowl ended. Obviously, the team needs to make a decision at offensive coordinator first. I believe that that's going to come in the next week to 10 days at the very most. They're going to interview a couple other candidates, and it could be an in-house guy as well.
Okay, I don't know if Bob is gone now. Um, my computer just completely restarted on me, so I knew it was only a matter of time as I kept freezing like that this was going to happen. So, um, I don't know if you guys can see or hear me, but that I caught most of Bob's commentary. Um, that he Okay, I'm back on. All right. I caught most of Bob's commentary that he um, he gave his theories about what was going to happen in the off season. My own thoughts of this. I think they explore all options with quarterback. I know it's weird. I'm back on. I don't know what was going on here. Like I said, my computer completely restarted. And I've been following y'all's comments as best I could uh, via the chat, but it's hard. I just couldn't get it to do anything else. Um, I think that the Saints do explore all the options at quarterback, including the draft. But I think the first thing that's going to happen is they have to figure out who their offensive coordinator is, and that guy is going to help drive them to see who they get as quarterback. I think Winston is very much on the table. I think trading for somebody, and that includes Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson, Garoppolo, Cousins. I mean, we talked about this in the past, but you have to explore all these options. All those guys on the table, um, in the draft. Pickett, Corral, Strong, Malik. Um, you've got a whole bunch of different quarterbacks you can go through too. So, and even if they make a trade for a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers is going to be off the table because we've seen this already. The Packers know he's the reigning two-time MVP, but sorry about that. he They can't afford to let him go. They can't afford to have Aaron Rodgers walk. They have nothing behind him. Jordan Love is not going to be their starting quarterback. They know this. When they let Brett Favre walk, it's because they had Aaron Rodgers in the building. They don't have an Aaron Rodgers in the building, so they're going to do whatever they can to keep him. Um, I don't know what's going to happen with Seattle and Russell Wilson. Seattle doesn't have somebody to replace Russell Wilson. Um, so I can't see Seattle making that move. I can see the 49ers getting rid of Garoppolo because they already invested in Trey Lance and they like what they see out of Trey Lance. Um, if I'm trading for Garoppolo, though, I'm offering a fourth at best, and it can be a conditional pick that that pick can become a better pick if he plays all 16 games, if the Saints go to the playoffs, if they advance to the division NFC Championship. He throws for X amount of yards. He throws for so many touchdowns. All these things that you kind of put into effect if you're going to make that move. You know, um, so they're going to look at all these options, and then salary cap wise, it makes sense to draft a quarterback too, because then you get that cheap contract and you can pay a Marcus Williams. You can go out there and get a more expensive free agent wide receiver. You could maybe bring in a Leonard Fournette. You can, bring in the tight end from the Dolphins, Gillespie. You could do all kinds of different things because you're not spending that money on a quarterback. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of options they could do. And yes, I've seen this that Aaron Rodgers going to the Denver Broncos. I just don't think the Broncos going to. I mean, the Packers are going to let him go. Um, the only reason I don't want to put Deshaun Watson in that list, and the Raiders are saying they're going to commit to Derek Carr. But the reason why I'm not putting Deshaun Watson in that list is the same thing we talked about last week. They haven't figured out or had any kind of legal movement with his case. We still don't know if he's going to go to trial. We don't know if he's going to get arrested. We don't know any of this stuff. And with that much uncertainty, and you make a decision to commit to a guy like Deshaun Watson, who is a elite quarterback, but you make a decision to commit to a Deshaun Watson, then get hit with, oh, he's going to jail for 2 years. You lost those picks that you traded away, and you got a guy that you may have got salary cap money tied into or whatever that's not even going to play for your team. And how long is he going to be suspended when he gets out? All those things play into that effect. Um, I I like Deshaun Watson, the player. I don't like Deshaun Watson, the legal trouble. So if Deshaun Watson, the player, is an elite quarterback. He really is an impressive quarterback. I would love to have him if he didn't have this other stuff hanging over his head. And to me, that's the part that you can't get away from. You just can't. There's no way around it. Um, So that's what hurts anybody from making a move on him. Um, so it's tough. Um, Malcolm Jenkins, I think they keep Malcolm Jenkins because again, you don't have anything behind him. You've got PJ Williams behind him essentially, and PJ may be better I as a part time safety. The longer he's out there, the more he gets exposed. So again, that's a tough decision to make, and you probably want to keep the leadership, because Malcolm Jenkins is more than just a player at this point. He's still playing at an elite level, but he's more than just a player. You really want to get or keep that core leadership on this team, the Cam Jordan, the Demario Davis, and the Malcolm Jenkins kind of players, because you've got a new coaching staff. And I have to give it to Dennis Allen. He really is going to shake up this coaching staff. But you have a coaching staff where you're going to bring in some new players and you want them to buy in, but you want them to buy into a culture that those three guys are feeding and creating. You know, if those three guys aren't buying in, then Dennis Allen's legs get cut out from under him. And I think that's one of the reasons why Dennis Allen was chosen as as the head coach. Um, the the last question I had, and I really wanted to get Bob's take on this. A lot of fans are still holding out hope against hope that um, Eric Bieniemy will be the offense coordinator now for the Saints. That way, they can get the best of both worlds. They wanted Bieniemy as the head coach and Dennis Allen to stay as the defensive coordinator. So they figured they can't have that. Then we'll get Dennis Allen the head coach and Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. I don't know if that's going to happen, only because I don't know if there's a relationship with Eric Bieniemy and Dennis Allen. And yes, Sean Payton hired uh, Greg Williams, despite there not being a relationship between the two. But when Sean Payton hired Greg Williams, he was in year 5 of his head coaching career. He had already built the culture he wanted to build. He got the players he wanted to play. I think the the people that and Allen wants to build are the people who are going to be part of his philosophy, his ideas, his things, and the people he knows that will be able to sell what he is trying to sell to the team. So that's why I have a hard time seeing Bieniemy come here, because Bieniemy is the kind of person you bring in once you've established yourself as a coach, and it's clear that you're the sole voice in the room. Um, and you're bringing in a guy like Bieniemy to inject life into an offense that you think isn't very good, much like what the Saints did when Gary Gibbs was let go as defensive coordinator and Sean Payton goes and brings in a Greg Williams, because he knew his team based on the players he had. He knew he was close, that he just needed to get his defense to be better. I can afford to bring in somebody new because I've got the people I need. You don't have that yet with the offense. You've got a lot of building to do first. Um, I think Pete Carmichael is one of these guys that is a behind the scenes guy. He never wanted to be a head coach, never wanted to be the focal point. Um, Pete Carmichael and Sean Payton. Sean Payton ran that offense. Pete Carmichael had a relationship with Breeze, and he knew what Breeze liked before Breeze even said it. And I think his contributions to this offense was, I'm going to design, I'm going to put into plays that I know Breeze likes. And that's my contribution to this offense. Sean can design the plays all he wants. And I'm going to look at these plays and go, okay, Drew's going to like that. Drew's probably not going to like this one. These are the plays I think we should build this offense around. So when they have the Saturday night meeting, Drew's looking at the play sheet and he's clicking off all the ones and he's just rattling them off because Carmichael's already prepared it for him. you know. Um, and I think now that Drew is gone, Sean's gone, I think Carmichael's like, you know what, this isn't my strength here. My strength is developing a relationship and building a quarterback. I think I want to be quarterback coach. Um, who do I want as defensive coordinator? Chris Richard or Brian Nielsen? Both of them are very good coaches. Um, I honestly don't want them to move from where they are, and it's not a knock on their coaching ability. I just think they're more useful focusing on position rather than being the guy who's basically going to do what Dennis Allen comes up with. Um, Dennis Allen sees himself a little like Bill Belichick because Bill Belichick runs that defense. Yeah, you have Matt Patricia and you've had Romeo Crennel and you've had guys coming in and be the defensive coordinator, but Bill Belichick's the one that designs those game plans specifically. And he turns his responsibility to the coordinators, but Belichick's the one ultimately who makes the calls on these defenses. I think you're going to find a guy like an Aaron Glenn or some of the other people they have looked at as being an outsider that's worked with Dennis Allen before, that has that relationship with Allen, become that defensive coordinator. I just don't know who it is yet. Okay, last question. What was my take on the Michael Thomas news? My take on the Michael Thomas news is that Thomas is showing his relationship. Nick Underhill said the same thing. Thomas is showing his relationship with the Saints is good, it's repaired, and he's ready to come back to work. And when I say come back to work, and that's why I wore his jersey tonight, it's come back and be an elite player. Did he have a setback? Maybe. We probably read way too much into it, but he's taken all the distractions away, and his focus is now, I'm going to be that receiver I was in 2018 and 2019. That receiver that nobody wanted to face, that receiver who caught everything that came my way, had very few drops, was the fastest to get X amount of, receptions. I think that's where he is now, and I think that's a good thing. So, anyway, thank you guys for putting up with the show tonight. I really don't know. Thank you, Donald, for the questions. I really don't know why it froze the way it did, and I couldn't see anything. I literally had a black screen. I couldn't see anything that was going on. So that's why I was in the YouTube chat. Um, thank you guys for sticking with us, and thanks, Bob, for chiming in. I'm sorry the show went the way it was, but that's because Sean's not here. If Sean's not here, things go to hell. So next week, Sean will be here, and we'll talk about free agency because Mardi Gras is in 2 weeks, but free agency starts beginning of March. What are they going to do at Marcus Davenport? What are they going to do at quarterback? That's the things we'll talk about next week. In the meantime, thank you guys. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.